Hello, everybody. I am Anna Maria, and I am here with Maura from Books Around the Corner. And today we're gonna have our video mix podcast episode where we talk about the conversation that I've been sort of carrying along on the Instagram account, which relates to parenting. And I like to interview businesses that have some sort of relation to the topic of the month, because I like to support local businesses that help or encourage mental health in some way. And maybe sometimes the businesses that I have interviewed haven't realized that they are actually helping more than they think with the mental health of people.
Right.
And we can find this through our own experience. Because maybe this is our first question.
Okay.
You sell used books.
I do.
Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. And you sell them through Instagram. Maybe you started, has it been a year?
No, September is when I started.
September. So short.
Short. Very short.
It's
Yep.
a recent endeavor.
Right.
And what brought you to the moment of saying, I'm going to sell books?
Yeah, I've had for years friends ask me, tell me that they would love for me to shop for them for books because they don't know what to look for or have the time or the desire. And I love books. I have a lot of books. And so
as you can tell, just in case you missed it, this is just a personal library. And if you're watching or if you're listening to the podcast, the personal library is more than my little personal library at home. And it surrounds us in a lot of walls.
Yeah, so I have a lot of books and a lot of experience with books. And we needed to find a way. I am at home with my kids. And so I needed to find a way, or wanted to find a way to be able to make some income while I was home. And this is make some income. It's also something I love. It's really given me an outlet. And my customers have been so happy with it. So much
being one of them.
good feedback. And they're so excited to introduce these books to their children. So that was kind of there was a very practical need for my family that I could combine with something I love and a service that people wanted.
That's right. I have a few of your books. Quite a few. And they are really good because they're very educational.
Right.
Or wholesome. I've had the Rome one.
Oh yeah, Step into Rome, Step into Ancient Rome.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm really bad. I don't know any author, which this is why I think you're so helpful, because you know your authors.
Right.
You have sometimes a little video on the Instagram about an author, or you dedicate that time to those people that have made a good book.
Right.
And you usually pick stuff with really beautiful images, I would say.
So that's I pretty highly curate the books I get. I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to books. I think
when you're giving a book to your child, you want them to fall in love with the book, to actually enjoy it, And
so for me, the story needs to be beautiful, and so do the images.
That's the story and the images is what you look for.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what's one of your favorite books? But do you have one?
Well, I guess it depends if it's a picture book or a chapter book, a children's book. Primarily, I sell children's books, but I do have some adult reading material.
One of the first ones you like to introduce your children to, for example, or that you couldn't miss.
Oh, the Little House on the Prairie series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's a very iconic children's series. So that's so let me back up a little bit. For my little people, there's a book called 10 Little Fingers and 10 Little Toes by Helen Oxenbury, and it just tells, Mem Fox wrote it and then Helen Oxenbury illustrates it, it tells about all these different babies born in different places and different circumstances, and then each time it ends with, but each of these babies, as everyone knows, has 10 little fingers and 10 little toes. So kind of teaching kids about how, as much as we're different, we're also the same.
Oh,
and it's just a super, super great book, and little ones love it because it has lots of babies in it. So that one, and then as a picture book, I love Blueberries for Sal by Robert McCloskey. It's like amazing.
I have not heard of
it. Was
any of these
the first picture book that I remember being given as like my own. It wasn't just part of our family library as a kid, it was mine. So it's got a special place. And then for a book series, like I think I would say Little House on the Prairie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am quite illiterate. Just
in North American literature,
I would also say in Spanish literature. I didn't grow up with the love for books.
Okay.
I was always rejecting the books. My parents tried to install it, but I didn't. I don't think we had this selection, first of all.
Right.
And I have gone back to Mexico to purchase books that are in Spanish.
Right.
And it's been a harder thing than here.
Right.
Like here you go to all the stores, they have vintage books and really beautiful paintings and drawings, and I have gone a couple times and they are quite expensive or not used, or they're the English ones, or they don't have beautiful. I haven't found something.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's one of my. Maybe I should start translating some books.
Great.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
A lot of the times I grab a book and I try to translate it for the kids.
Right.
And I can't because they're usually rhyming.
Right.
So it's harder to translate when you're thinking about translating, and then to rhyme it on top of that, it's quite complicated. So I gave up.
Right.
And then I have to read it in English, and then it's missed.
Right.
So the translations are quite expensive too.
Right.
Say Dr. Seuss, find the translation, and that's So
interesting. I've never thought of that.
No, it's been in my thoughts since I had kids.
Yeah.
Because it's such a struggle to translate. Maybe I need just to spend more time looking for Spanish books.
Right.
Because I'm sure they exist, but
that's interesting.
Not as easily accessible as here.
Right.
Here you find them.
Yeah.
You can't miss an old book here.
Right.
I have found a few really good stuff on all the used stores.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something Canada does very well.
Right.
Pre-loved items.
Right.
It's perfect. So in your personal story, what have books done for you?
Oh, yeah. So I grew up with a lot of books, like way more books than I have here. My mom still has like bookshelves and bookshelves and bookshelves and bookshelves of books, and she was very good at curating a really great library. And I feel like probably the parts of my education that I remember the most are the books I read. And I like the experience of sitting down with a good book and reading it and just like getting lost in that world. I just was so formative. So much I think of learning about other cultures and other people's lives and kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, entering into a different world. That's really, I think, what books are. I think that's why they've touched me so much.
Would you say they have increased your empathy when it comes to personal relations?
Yeah, I think so, because you just, again, you can enter into a different world and hear someone else's story, and it's not just like a little bit. If you're reading a whole novel or a whole series, you're getting like the character development in that, and so you identify with these characters and you grow to love them, and then hearing their story and their suffering or their joys and their triumphs, I think there definitely increases your empathy.
And would you say that books have helped you in your parenting journey? You are a mother of four here,
yes.
One in heaven,
Yes.
And you have gone through all the parenting.
Right.
Like your oldest is a teen.
Right.
Entering her teen years.
Right.
And your littlest is 2.
Right. Yes.
So have books helped you? Both either maybe they're your time away from everybody and you have to find time. Do you read? Do you find time to read?
Yeah.
How much do you read a day?
Yeah, so it depends on the season. When I'm in a good season, and for me, I can create a good season of reading if I leave books in places that I am. Like, so if there's a book on my bedside table, if there's a book on the couch where I'm sitting down with the baby, then I will pick it up and read. If I don't do that, then I tend to pick up my phone more often. So, but I try to read. I don't have any concept of how much. Last year I tried to do like, it was 2 books a month minimum, and I did hit that and more. Like, I think I read maybe 30 books last year, all different types and that, but
that's
I did read
3. You can't.
Right.
It's really like a mental challenge for me first, because moving the eyes through the words,
right,
and staying focused there without my mind wandering everywhere.
Right.
Like, I end up sometimes reading the same line 5 times before I can move on because my mind just wanders.
Would you do audiobooks?
No, I can't.
Okay.
Even my mind wanders more.
Right.
At least here I have to read.
Right. Okay.
But the audiobooks is just I don't know.
No.
I can barely listen to a podcast without
Okay.
tuning out. Like, sometimes I just put the podcast so that it makes noise in the background.
Right.
And then after I listen to the whole thing, I'm like, oh, what did he say?
Right.
What was the whole thing about?
Right. Okay.
So
okay.
I find it very challenging. I am trying more and more, like with prayer books, and I just focus for 5-10 minutes,
Right.
and my mind's there. But my own personal books that I would like to read, they can collect dust. I try, but takes like, okay, focus in this. Right. And I get bored. Like, I have a lot of books that I don't finish.
Right.
Does that not happen to you? That you just...
Yes,
like,
it
does. I can barely...
It does, although I feel like I have just a lot of practice in knowing what I'm going to like. And I don't tend to pick up books that I don't think I'm going to like. So I don't read, like, I don't read a lot of, like, heavy literature. Or, like, I definitely don't read, like, philosophy or those kinds of things. Like, I have pretty particular genres that I read because it's just what I enjoy, and I won't stick with it if I...
Good point.
Yeah. It's also my kind of downtime, so I tend to not love to make it really heavy and, like, intellectual because... And that sounds bad, because a good novel is an intellectual endeavor. But I mean, like, heavy kind of, like... themes in that. No, it's not the time of life for me right now.
Not the time. No, there's seasons and seasons.
There are seasons and seasons. Live in your season.
Yeah, live in the season.
Yeah.
Last question maybe. What is the biggest or the best book maybe that you have read in relation to parenting that has said, oh, this for parenting advice has changed my life.
Right.
Or has opened my eyes. I
don't think I could pick one. But the first one I'll say is a book called Love-Centered Parenting. Okay. And it's really a very fascinating book because it's not written by a psychologist or a parenting expert or anything like that. This woman has no training in parenting or psychology or anything except her own experience of her family, and she had 3 kids and was raising them, as she would say, for reputation rather than relationship, and they went through some very, very, very difficult times with their kids and real mental health crises, and it made her stop and examine her parenting. And
she's not saying, see all these great things I did in the country. She's saying, look at all the mistakes I made. Don't do them.
Yeah, she's basically, she's saying, like, what did she change to transform her parenting? And her kids, her 3 oldest are teenagers now. One of them's in university. And so they have this pretty crazy story. She had 3 kids, and then they had secondary infertility for like 11 years. So they started doing foster care because they didn't think they'd ever have another one. And then in a very strange turn of events, they had they have 3 little ones now, 3 under the age of 4, as well as these 3 older ones.
So they have 6 now.
Yeah, they have 6 now. So one is adopted, and the other 2 were like complete surprise pregnancies 11 years after their youngest. Oh, wow. So she's kind of
re-entering the
redoing all her stuff. But
nice,
so she talks about like how she was and what she changed and how that's impacted her relationships. And her kids were the ones who encouraged her to write the book, because they were like, you became such a different mom. And she has this beautiful, from everything you can see, obviously it's all social media, but she's pretty honest. Like, I follow her on Instagram. She has this just beautiful relationship with her children.
What made her change? Her parent, like, what?
Well, this mental health crisis with one of her kids. Okay. And I think, if I recall correctly, a counselor once said to her, they were doing like family counseling, and the counselor once said something along the lines of, what if you just listen to your child instead of trying to fix your child? It's a little bit of a, and it made her...
It's a very good point.
She took that really to heart, and it made her examine her parenting. And so her big premise of this book is, we cannot parent from a love-centered like heart if we do not believe that we are loved by our Heavenly Father. So she's Christian, and she's like, you have to know that you are loved in order to be able to give that unconditional love to your children. And so, and to not rely on your children's behavior or other people's opinions of your children or whatever to give you your value. And then you can let them be who they are, because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. They are who they are. They are loved. You are loved. And so it's very, very good.
I would like to find that.
It's a really good book. It really changed my love-centered parenting. Yeah, by Crystal Payne.
Crystal Payne.
Yeah, Crystal Payne.
Okay. Yeah. We will put out the tags.
Yeah, so that one.
All this.
And then the other one is, oh goodness, now I can't remember. I can see the picture of the book. It is called Parenting from the Inside Out. Yeah, exactly. Okay, but on one hand,
it's
the book talks about.
It's just you have to do the.
Oh, you have to do the work.
You have to, and I have found that as soon as I started having children, they mirror your 100%. Own personality and your own issues. And they tell you can learn a lot of yourself from your children. They push your buttons, right? Like, especially... It's a very humiliating experience.
So this book was extremely encouraging to me, because he does lay out that, like, our past and our childhood wounds impacts our children. That we parent out of those unless those are healed. Unless we were... in healing, unless we work through them, that we will pass on or act from our pain of our past unless we do something about it. But he's very clear that we can do something about it, that you're not just stuck and trapped. Like, if you grew up in an alcoholic family or something, you are not destined to pass that on. Yeah. Or to pass on, even if you don't become an alcoholic, to pass on the wounds and the trauma that you experience from living in that. You have to do your inner work and get your healing. But if you do that, then you can change the family tree, change the way that you parent so that your children have a different life experience. So on one hand, it's like a gut check.
And children are calm.
Not really. And on the other hand, it's encouraging. It was encouraging to me for him to say, this can happen. You can do it differently.
Yeah. All right. We will have one last question, because kids need mamas.
Attention.
I was just reading a lot about imagination,
right,
and how the TV can sometimes crush that imagination, because it is coming from an external source,
right,
and not from their internal mind,
right.
So how would you say that books can maybe encourage imagination as opposed to the TV that maybe breaks that relation to the imagination?
Right.
Or maybe does it play the same role?
So I think that I have no science to back any of this up, but my observation as a mother is that it doesn't have to be an either or. I think because kids are reading a book is more engaged than watching TV. Like, it's a very passive thing to watch a television. And so you're just kind of passively receiving that. And also, depending on the shows they're watching, it is like so stimulating that they get like, then other things are boring. Like, if they're watching a lot of like superhero type stuff, well, then go to Little Bear and it's just boring. And so that's a problem to me.
Yeah.
Books, on the other hand, I think like they have, it is an active engagement with a book, especially as a parent if you're sitting reading with them to begin with.
It's a connecting
moment.
Right,
it's connecting, and you can and it just, it gives them ideas and thoughts and stories to build on, but they're having to engage with it as opposed to just kind of receiving it, and it doesn't have the same like kind of shutdown effect on their brain that, from my understanding of the science behind television, that does. So I don't think all TV is bad. We definitely watch shows, but in moderation, and my hope is to have more books than more TV.
Yeah.
Again, some seasons,
I think you're doing a pretty good job.
Right.
I'll say.
Well, we're trying. They're here.
Based on my surroundings, I would say you're doing a good job.
Well, thanks.
Okay, so if you need your books, and you're going to be doing books for adults as well.
Yeah, so I have books for...
You've already started.
Yeah, I have some.
Right?
And lots of literature books and some, I don't know, personal development books.
Nice.
Yeah, some family, some ones on prenatal and postnatal care and new babies, and just things that I think help to build a family's library of books that are helpful to have in a family.
Well, yeah, they build connection, I find, between the family. We started taking on small little books, but they are like the classics made into a small version. And I haven't read these classics, but I'm happy I'm reading the short version, and we're learning them together. And it's nice to increase my literacy, to say the least. Yeah, it's exciting. So give it a try. Find Maura at Books Around the Corner, and get your shops. You usually sell around Thursdays?
Yeah, I try and post Thursday nights. It's not going to... This week and next might be a bit different, but yeah, Books Around the Corner shop on Instagram. And I post those nights, but the books that are available are still always available on my page.
They do go really quick.
Yeah, they do.
Watch out, because there's a couple of people with the same likes as me.
Yeah.
And they take my books.
Yeah.
So watch out for those nights. And thank you so much for watching and for following and for trying to be great parents. Bye.
Bye.
Let's listen to our children now.
Yeah.